All right. Got the red button of liveness. All right, everybody. It's a data center news show. I am Amy Palvido. I am your host, and I've got my beach chair. I'm sporting my beach chair because I just flew in from Hawaii. And I didn't have time to, this is all you're getting today, y'all. I'm surprised I'm awake. I left, I left last night, 10 o'clock in the evening, Hawaii time. And we landed in Austin at 11:55. And it's 1:30, and I'm on my second wind and lots of coffee, and we're going to do the show. So either it's going to be absolutely brilliant and total crap. It's going to be one or the other. Well, I don't know. We'll see. But we got Andy and Wyatt on the show, so it'll be great. That they can cover for me while I'm over here trying to fall asleep. No, I'm just kidding.
You're punch drunk. I think that's what it is.
That's what it is. Punch coffee. I didn't get to drink anything, but yes, no, I'm very punchy for sure. All right, let me have my my guests introduce themselves. Hey, Andy, why don't you introduce yourself, sir?
Hi, my name is Andy Erda. I'm with LS Electric, been there 8 years. And prior to that, I was at Schneider. And prior to that, I was with some other companies, mostly in automation, factory automation. But when I was at Schneider, I managed the field service group for the Midwest. So had about 15 direct reports and a good chunk of business. So that was a good experience. And then had an opportunity to go to work for LS after leaving Schneider, which incorporated background in my automation and also what I'd learned at Schneider on power, everything from breakers, retrofills, retrofits, and then of course, the difference between new construction and which is greenfield and brownfield. So that was good education and been building upon that. And so I'm happy to say LS is really focused on the U.S. We're one of the big markets for us. We've had tremendous growth. When I started just a little over 7.5 years ago, we were $50 million the first year I was there. This past year would be $750 million in the U.S.
That's awesome.
Yes, and a lot of it is being grown is growth in data centers. So can't really talk about too many people, but we do work with some fine Texas companies that are both end users that are building hyperscalers down there. And also, I can talk about Samsung. We've actually put our switchgear in the Samsung factory in Texas, which has been the chips there, I believe, are reserved for another Texas company, from what I've read. So that's good. So we have a facility outside of Austin in Bastrop, which is very excited to say we're assembling and building air circuit breakers and molded case circuit breakers there today. We also several years ago bought a custom switchgear manufacturer out in Utah called MCM Engineering, and we just announced that we're going to be expanding their facility also to expand their medium voltage switchgear to low voltage switchgear. We're going to be building there also. So
very cool. And did you start shipping out of Bastrop already? Sorry for interrupting. Did you start shipping?
Yes,
I know you're talking about January. Okay, great.
Yeah, we already. Yeah, we're shipping. Yeah, so we're kind of excited about that. It's kind of nice to say made in America, or at least assembled in America, technically. One of the things that we're right now looking to do is utilize the supply chain in the U.S. to find more suppliers for Bastrop, and so that would all be good. So we actually have the line for our motor case circuit breakers is actually sold out by one customer already. It's a hyperscaler, and they're asking us to put a second line in there already. Because you can imagine there's still a detriment to have a tax penalty with tariff going on. So anything we can build in the U.S., we can do that. By the way, this was all planned before tariffs hit, so it's not a knee-jerk reaction.
That would have been a fast knee jerk if you had planned it that quickly. I mean, that would have been.
No. It wasn't a knee jerk. It's been in the works for several years, but it's. I kept telling him when I'm ex Yaskawa Electric, and when Yaskawa decided to build variable frequency drives in the States, it was a game changer for the brand and also people understanding that they were committed to the marketplace. So I'm hoping that LS will have a similar reception. So that's my
That's awesome.
elevator speech. I probably went over the time. I apologize.
No, there's no time. There's no time constraints here. We can go on forever. No, I'm just kidding. All right, Wyatt, your turn.
I was just watching you tie your shoes, Amy. I think that's what you're
I
doing.
know. I'm like trying to get my Wi-Fi cord onto my computer because it keeps lag. I have Wi-Fi issues, so if I go out or I say stupid things, it's not just come punch drunk. It's because I have Wi-Fi
You should
issues.
blame
But
it
keep
on
going.
that.
I
Hey,
know.
Wyatt Pemberton here, Critical Grid Solutions, sit in Houston. We, power development to powered land, all the way from idea, site inception through site vetting, all the way through COD. Some of our projects are build and operate, so we own them after they go COD to feed whatever offtake client we have. Right now, most of those off takers are data folks. So so the world we're living in. The supply demand as you've got going there, Andy. We're just trying to satiate demand as best as possible with the constraints of supply chain that we have today, and through that have a whole suite of projects with various technologies in place, various solutions in place. I would love to say that we've got two projects that are identical and we could just cookie cutter from one to the other and roll permits, and that would just be too easy in this world. Every single one has various pitfalls and road signs and roadblocks and hurdles that are all different. And even when we think we haven't figured out, they change. I will say I received, Amy, you'll appreciate this. I received a really good compliment yesterday that I really, that I'm, pat myself on the back. We do have a pretty healthy pipeline of projects that are under development, and so we're constantly working with finance and banks to fund and finance various aspects and pieces of those. We've been working with one since December, so not that long, and they, two big meetings this year so far in January and they're pushing me, right? I'm not going fast enough. Really, that's what it comes down to. That's my takeaway. But it is, me saying, hey, guys, you're top of mind. I've got the projects. We're working through them, but they are not presentable ready. We're just not quite there. And the response back I got was, you know what? We appreciate that because we've had so many developers come and bring us projects, or EPC guys come with they're looking for us to de-risk some portion of the project and they're too early. And then so when it actually gets to the point of need, we don't know if they're real or not real. So that was 2 days ago. Yesterday, that same team was having a different meeting with one of my OEMs, and knowing that was the connection, the president of that company brought up to my OEM, hey, Critical Grid, what's going on with that Wyatt guy? And so they're telling me this. I'm like, oh man, what did I do? Like, did I shoot myself in the foot? Like, had I done something wrong? Like, did I really wrong these guys? And this president of this bank said, hey, he's the first developer we've ever talked to that said, hey, I'm not ready to take your money. I was like, no, I'm ready to take their money. Like don't get the wrong idea here, but you just, on the ones that we have slated for them to look at them give them the first look on, they're just not quite ready, right? Amy, you've been to some of those sites where we have site control, we have interconnection filed, but we're working through the term sheet on the offtake, or we've got the term sheet on the offtake and we've got site control, but we are still in the middle of doing our study to make our interconnection filing. So there are all these little pieces that aren't quite. If I could take all of our projects in my hands, if I bundle them all up into one, I'd have one really, really good mega project, but we're not quite there on the suite. So with that,
at the end of the day, there's just a lot of noise, and that's what they're used to. They're used to noise coming from people who aren't ready, but they're trying to tee stuff up. And that sounds like something I would do. Like, okay, I got this person over here and I've got everybody kind of understands what's happening in the projects. But it does for the banks, for the finance guys, they really don't want to press go and get all that work and headache to go through that process if you're not ready. That just wastes everybody's time. But people
Well,
do it anyway because they're ignorant and they think they're ready, or they're trying to preempt things and like I'm an old GC, so I would like to like throw out feelers to see, okay, where are my obstacles going to be, and which it causes other issues, right? So
well,
it just
I will say it's not just the banks; it's the these data folks. You're not even just your hyperscalers. It's all the
Yep.
guys in that field. They're maybe the right word's gun shy, maybe it's not, but they've had so many people approach them
Yep.
in various phases, and they've been let down and they've been burned. And when you're a VP at a hyperscaler or an SVP at a hyperscaler, and you get burned by some power guy or some development or some land guy, it makes you, one, makes you super cautious, two, makes you super guarded, and then three, it makes it hard for the, I don't want to say legitimate, but the legitimate guys, or at least believe they're legitimate, coming behind you. It makes them hard to get in the door. They get gate kept, and I say that from experience. We're getting gate kept on a daily basis from major companies when we have major opportunities, and everyone in the middle that understands the opportunity from both sides is like, you guys should be talking. Or I'll get introduced to them and then they don't follow up because the belief is maybe this isn't real. I don't know.
Yeah.
I digress.
All right, so let's talk PTC a little bit. So I have just survived and came back from PTC, and on-site power generation was one of the topics.
Honolulu, how was the weather? You
It was beautiful. Yeah,
Wow.
I know. Everything was beautiful. I have so many pictures. It was lovely weather. It was warm. My kids went to the beach every day. They boogie board. They didn't get out on surfboards because they were like, no. But they got out on boogie boards and had a good time, and then got beat up in the waves. And then the last day we took a tour around the island. So we went up to the North Shore, did the Dole Plantation, did all this, and went snorkeling, and saw like there was a huge turtle. It was actually on the beach. So we can't, they had put guards around it because I was just hanging out on the beach, like these temporary sticks to go, hey, leave it alone. But I was like, oh, I just want to go get a selfie with the turtle, but I didn't. But no, it's great. It was my first year, an absolute zoo. Like I didn't even run into Todd. Like I ran into like maybe half the people I knew that were going to be there. Like I didn't even see them. Like it's just so massive. And not everybody stays at the Hilton. They're having events at like 6 or 7 different venues all up and down Waikiki. And so it's definitely interesting. You could like go there and not see which I didn't see Martin Rankus. I didn't see a bunch of other people, and I'm texting them like, where are you? And they're like, I'm over here. And then like I never see them. Like just we're at the same party and never saw them. Like it's crazy.
And that was what I heard. I heard the parties were great, and I knew a lot of people, probably just like you, that went, that didn't even register didn't even register for the event. They went and they had the meetings, and they stayed for the parties and the social, and back-to-back meetings, like booked it all day long.
Oh yeah, I mean, some of them didn't. Some of them, and so you could do that at like the other hotel. They're getting better about gatekeeping on who gets into the sessions. I will say so. Let's talk about on-site power generation, because they were talking about this at since I got 2 power guys on the show today. They were talking about it, and Wyatt, I would say the approach that everybody was talking about, it seemed to me you do something that's a little more involved than most of these guys that were at the conference talking about. Like, it just seems like they were bringing in trailers. And this is like me. Okay, y'all, like, just fair warning. I'm at power. What am I at 201 now? Like I just like call Wyatt. I go, I don't know what they're saying, Wyatt. I have no idea. But go solve this problem. But so it looked like they were just pulling up these trailers and then hooking them into the building. That's what they're making it seem like. And I'm sitting there going, that's total BS, man. Like, there's no way they're doing this. But that's what they were selling. And I was like, where's the switch yard? Where are the batteries? Where's all this other stuff that you need in order for this to go, to make this make sense, right? And so it was interesting how they were selling their on-site power generation. And then there was a lot of different people there, like Solar Turbine, Cat was there. And that would have been a really interesting session to see, because apparently CAT has been, or the Solar Turbine has an actual installation that they've been running AI workloads on for the last year. And I go, that would have been an insightful panel. Like, what were the lessons learned running behind the meter on something on an AI workload? But that's not what they were talking about. So I was like trying to track that guy down. Come on my show so we can talk about this. But it was interesting. There were a lot of people in the room. Every room every day was packed full of people. It was a ton of people, but it just seemed like what you're doing or what we're working on, like say at Martindale, which is, it's a lot more complex. You're gonna have a switch yard, you're gonna have a substation there. We're gonna have like multiple sources of energy, which causes a different level of complexity, right? So what they were showing, there's no way you could have like nukes and natural gas and do that in some sort of sense. That's Power 201, y'all. That's about as far as I got. So I'm going to let it to the experts, and that's what I'm going to say. I don't know. Throw that one out there.
There's a lot of flavors and there's a lot of solutions, and there's no silver bullets. And especially what we're seeing today on the, let's call it the boots on the ground, or the realities of supply chain issues today. It's taking, it's an amazing time to be alive, because people are thinking about solutions in ways that we've never thought about them in the past, and thinking about ways to unlock efficiencies that we've never seen in the past. And it's a really cool place to be right now when you have this supply chain. I don't think anyone would have ever forecast that we would be 5 to 7 years out on turbines. That's absolutely amazing. Switchgear, Andrew brought up his company's their gear that they sell, and they brought to market, that it was, they were behind, they're back ordered on things today, that, transformers of all things, like things that we just didn't think that we would ever be the constraining items for projects. So the on-site guys are really cool, right? The containerized or the 18-wheeler trailer with an engine on it is super fascinating, because what we're able to do is we're able to take some of these smaller engines, some of the smaller turbines, or even some of the smaller RICE engines, the reciprocating internal combustion engines, like the CAT 3020s or the Wartzillas, or any number of God, there's so many of them, that you can take these 2.5 to 5 megawatt units, or some of them are even bigger, but I'll just stay in my lane on that are trailer based. We could roll 4 of them at 2.5 megawatts each. We could roll 4 of them up to your building or your containers or your site or whatever that is, and plug them in. In theory, it's almost that simple. Now we still have to solve for, the fuel supply. So we're gonna have to run, a pipeline from somewhere, if they're gas fired, or if they're diesels, which a lot of these are dual fuels. We would have a tanker truck there and some skids with tanks on them. To feed fuel, but there's a lot of options there. Now that unlocks other problems, right, with emissions and noise and whatever. But as far as them being mobile, it means they're not permanent, and so there's some ways around. We saw Elon get by it with it in Memphis, that the engines that they're running outside of, let's call it their air permit. Well, they're saying, well, they're not permanent, right? We can run outside of our air permit for 365 days before we start having a problem. That's kind of it. I don't think that's the way we want to go to market. That shouldn't be the bottom line, but that is a possibility. That is an option that's allowed out there. So with the small scale stuff, as you say, the trailer mounted, those are really good bridge power units to get us to the manufacturing slots for the larger RICEs and for the turbines. And then you go put real steel and concrete in the ground and install your GE, your Siemens, your ABBs, your Mitsubishis, your Wartzillas. Once you get those in, maybe that's in 24 months, 36 months, 48 months. But these trailer mounted, these containerized, yeah, absolutely, they're great bridge items, and we didn't look at them that way just even 12 months.
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, our delivery is pretty good. Actually, we just expanded our high voltage transformer capacity, doubled it in Korea. So, and even the stuff coming out of Korea, we have very good deliveries on. Our sweet spot is medium voltage right now. We're doing really well on that, and that's the reason why we're going to be expanding low voltage in the U.S. So we do everything the Big Four does. So when the power lines stop, is when we go. So we take everything from high voltage down to low voltage with medium voltage switch gear, medium voltage transformers, and so on. So we're just one of the reasons why I wanted to be on this show is to kind of expose LS to people more than that. And we're also going to 13 events this year. The bulk of them are data centers. 7x24 will be at Distributed Tech in a week and a half. We'll be at AHR Expo, which you would think, well, that's really not a just data center focus, but there's a chunk of data centers that need cooling. So a VFD is a good solution for that. So, so there's we have that going on. One of the things I'd like to talk about is we were fortunate enough to be asked to. I should have started with who LS is. So LS
Yes.
is an offshoot of the Korean semi consumer giant LG, which was originally Lucky Gold Star. Is what it was back in the over 50 some years ago. In fact, our group is over 51 years old this year. But so we started off as LG Industrial Systems, then we were LS Industrial Systems. Now we're just LS Electric because the power section of our business has really become the growth driver. We're still very strong in automation, but as you can imagine, globally, there's a data center race on. So business in Asia is up, business in Europe is up, but we've been fortunate in the U.S. to actually outpace the growth of the rest of the globe. So we're doing pretty well. So we're making the investments to keep going. But the thing, we were at a recent thing that LG invited us to at Microsoft at their tech center. And what they were looking at was where is the future of data centers going, and basically power. So with NVIDIA coming out with DC powered rack down the road about 2 years out, we're already have developed some very interesting products. The first thing I've seen in transmissions, Wyatt and Amy, in a long time, we actually have a solid state medium voltage DC transformer that we actually have it. We're using it, and the reason why this ties together is because a lot of this is going into a container. Much what you're talking about. We showed up at the hotels or that you were in Hawaii. It's a similar thing. So we have one at a manufacturing site in Korea, and we have a brand new one going into our own factory that makes variable frequency drives that will basically have the new transformer, and then we'll have a duplicate of the standard capabilities where you have your vacuum circuit breakers and your standard medium voltage transformer. This would be cast resin is a type that we also build, and then other switchgear and things. So Microsoft is already looking down the road 2 years, 3 years, seeing if they can actually go to the NVIDIA type of server, in rack where they can have a more power in a smaller form, then they need to do it with DC power. So that's something that I think is going to be a very important trend as we go forward. Have you heard much about that, Wyatt, yourself?
Well, so we face the what do you call that? The power density or the compute density, and yes and no. Yes, we're already so dense that existing buildings today struggle to hold the weight, right? The engineering weight of if we put a bunch of these into the same kind of footprint that we would have had, historically used. I don't know where I saw it, but I saw it in the last 24 hours about a municipality where they were the old city jail was for sale, and they were converting the jail. I saw it on LinkedIn. It had to have been on LinkedIn. That's the only place I've that they were converting the jail to this very dense footprint compute, because the jail was built like a battleship. It had very, very thick concrete walls, very, very thick concrete floors, and so it could support this type of this density. But it from a pure engineering electrical standpoint, we have to be driving towards the DC side of it. That only makes sense.
Yeah, there's a startup that was looking at that. And so for I like to do on my show, I like to be the girl that breaks it all down into simple terms. So the fact that what DC will do is it a lot of the electrical infrastructure outside of the data center changes, right? Where you need less. That's the goal from DC? It's like better power, cleaner power. I don't know. Y'all, my power 201. I'm just saying. But my understanding, but there's a Patrick Giangrosso. He came from the DC industry. They were working on something, and we had this conversation at YADA, and it's in Singapore actually, where they're actually doing this DC based run data center. A DC is run by DC, but but yeah, I don't know what the impacts are, and the other thing too is you got to think through, can AI workloads, can it all be run by DC? I don't know. And that's the extent of my power knowledge. So I'm going to throw that out to y'all, since y'all know more about power than I do.
So
Did I get that right?
The answer is yes and no. The AI computing can be run by DC power, but existing that are running off of AC is going to is that hardware will need to have a converter in front of it, which we have. They use the AC stuff, but to get the true efficiencies, like Wyatt was saying, everybody wants to squeeze every fraction of a efficiency out of something because that's real money. When you could save money when you do more efficient. So the DC will be highly efficient, and I've heard numbers like some of the DC stuff is like 99.8% efficiency. Some of the things they're claiming that they're going to be able to attain, which is pretty crazy.
So the PUEs, they're going to get to like 1.2, is that something? I'm assuming the PUE ratio changes, or no?
Yeah, that's something I had to default. I'm just learning about the DC stuff myself, since it was a brand new thing. So in the future, I can bring a technical person on to answer more technical questions. Unfortunately, I'm just a marketing gentleman, so all my training is on the job. So, but I do understand the difference between what a MCB and a VCB is, pretty much. So, and what switchgear looks like. What a medium voltage switchgear and low voltage switchgear does. So in substations. So I have a pretty good general knowledge. Probably I'm 301, Amy, not 201.
Are you at 3? Okay. All right. Well, see, you're still ahead of me. So that's good.
Well, I think that's where exactly the efficiency. That's where we're going. It's going to be to squeeze the efficiencies out. And if you're, let's say you're co-locating with solar, you're already going to be DC. So if you have to go through a converter, you're going to lose some of your production going from the DC to the AC, or if you've got batteries, you're losing in the conversion. So if you have equipment that is DC supported, you can say, now you're going to convert from one side, right? At some point, if you've got grid power, or you're going to convert from AC. But let's say you are islanded.
Yeah.
Or some portion of your time you're islanded, and you could run DC. You could run your generators. You could have generators that are producing DC versus AC. So
or solar farm, if you have a big enough solar farm, or wind could be all DC.
Yeah. I mean, it does lend itself to renewables for sure. But the problem is, at the end of the day, is no data center tenant wants only, there's nothing, we're going to have to be on the grid. We can't get away from the grid, right? And we're going to have to do natural gas. Solar renewable sources, they're nice to have, but they're not going to be your main source of power. No one's going to rely on them. It's not going to happen. Get over it. Like, I know it would be great, and we would love to be green as much as possible. It's just not a reliable source of power. And everybody talks about is electrical reliability. That's what they talk about all the time. And how do we build those sources that make sense? But then at the end of the day, if we talk about, so we had solar, we had wind, we had nat gas, and we had nuke, right? We have all these 4 sources. That causes other electrical infrastructure problems that Wyatt has to figure out, and uses LS as transformers or switch yards or whatever, right? I don't know. Power 201 over here. But I'm assuming it causes problems. Yes, Wyatt? If I had 4 sources of power, what problems does that cause on site?
it just depends on the site and how you're set up. That may just be, supply diversity. I do want to say one thing about something that you said around we're going to need the grid, or we're going to need to be connected to the grid. I think that's an evolving conversation with regards to data centers. I feel like if you made a statement like that 6 months ago, you're spot on, and that's how quickly this world's evolving. It's if you sleep for one day, you miss a week in this industry right now. It's the Wild West, and that's how I would have said. You've got to have grid. You've got to have grid. I'm not that anymore. I've definitely evolved my opinion, because these host utilities or your legacy IOUs, you just can't sit on a project for 24 plus months waiting on interconnection that you're going to get it or not going to get it. Again, I just made the statement, if you sleep for one day, you miss a week. So imagine sleeping for 24 months or 18 months on your project, and it's not going. NVIDIA, they've come out with 6 more generations of chips that are that much more efficient. You are that far behind. So I don't think grid connectivity is the norm, or I think it's a misnomer today to say that you've got to have grid connectivity. And even further, we're going to see over this coming weekend here in Texas, just on our energy density, after the Winter Storm Uri of 2021, where the grid lost power and there were some lives lost and some things like that. Imagine if we had data centers at the level that we're supposed to have forecast in 3 to 4 to 5 years, and the people died, and they would turn and they would blame the data centers. They blame the Metas and the Vantages and the of the world for causing the brownouts and the blackouts and people freezing. I don't think, I'm not an attorney, but I do understand risk and de-risking, and I understand the hedge. I wouldn't want that for my company. I would not want that risk. I think if I had the ability to put down, if I want to do 1,000 megawatt facility, I'd go in there and build my 1,200 or 1,300 or 1,400 megawatts of power gen in several different, you're going to get shaft diversity, meaning multiple units and multiple engines, and you're going to get some fuel diversity, and you're going to build that in, and that's what you're going to resiliency and your redundancy is for your site. And then you don't need the grid, and maybe you do file that interconnection with the grid, and you do hook up your grid in 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, but you've been running for 3 years behind the fence, not even behind the meter, you're running behind the fence. And then at that point, then if you do tie to the grid and the grid needs you can respond to the grid, but you would never want to be in a position where you took energy from the grid, because based on what I'm seeing from these utilities, they are going to fry you. They are going to hit you with an economic penalty that it's not going to hurt for that day. They're going to hurt you for 12 months. They're going to hit you with some sort of capacity payment on that transmission utilization, and it's going to hurt.
Oh yeah, the demand charges are crazy town. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's the tenant. The tenant decides. And if it's Geico Insurance who is leasing out your data center and they want grid, you can't lease to them unless you have it, right? So it's got to be a continuing conversation. So path to grid. There's the term. We got to have a path to the grid.
And that's going to be a couple guys in a John Deere Gator, and we're going to give them 300 feet of extension cord, and they're going to take it across the street to the 7-Eleven and plug it in, and now we're hooked to the grid.
Yeah, go Andy.
That's a joke.
So I just want to say I agree with everything that Wyatt has said. I do think that the getting behind the grid or off the grid is the key. That these data centers don't want to wait.
No,
because what's happening is where they can get hooked up. Just in the news today, in the last 2 days in Chicago, 2 suburbs. One of them is Naperville, where I used to live in, and another one down south. I think it was like New Lenox or something like that. The local people said no to the data center, even though the developer had gone to great efforts to set it back and keep controlling noise and water. Yep. They're just concerned. They think that it's going to be a noisy pollution sort of thing. So the advantages of going out in somewhere in Texas or other sunny states, and there's plentiful gas, is you can go out in the middle of nowhere, set up your data center, and and right now what you're building, Wyatt, is probably it's all it's not quite Lego like, but you can put things together pretty quickly and stack it together. So there's a lot of these data centers that used to be doing crypto that now have been converted over to AI,
Yep.
and they're working on the parity on how can we have crypto and AI whenever we want it, depending on what the market's going on. Do we need to run AI today, or do we want to go crypto mining? So there's a lot of interesting things, and those people are like, I don't care about the grid. I just want to generate my own power, and if I'm connected to the grid, like Wyatt says, I'll sell some of my power to them, but I'm not going to be beholden to them. We're going to be self-powered and those people I think are doing quite well with that philosophy from what I heard.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I think it goes. I mean, yes, I agree.
I know everybody wants to be able to have they want to be connected. I'm in Chicago. I want to be connected to ComEd. I understand that, but
Yeah.
I think you have entrepreneurs that are seizing the moment, and they realize that if they can get something up and running in less than 24 months, 12 months, 6 months, 8 months, they have a true advantage to make hay. So I think that's what you're seeing going on today. So
Very true.
Wyatt, I do think you're exactly right. And then I think as we get more of the renewables, which are DC already, and NVIDIA, as you said, never stops bringing out more efficiency product. So there'll be other people chasing them. So there'll be even more DC products. So it's going to be interesting to see where the data center world is in 2 to 3 years. It's going to be dramatically different than what it is today on the power side, I believe.
The Vera Rubin, that's the newest one that came out with. Is that the DC product, or is it the iteration behind the Vera Rubin? Because all I know about the Vera Rubin, the latest and greatest chip, like they keep naming it weirdo things, is that it can take more heat, and so therefore you're not having to cool the data centers off as much. But is it a DC only chip?
No, I think the DC one is about 2 years out, and it's not only the chip may be out, but they're talking about providing an actual server rack. That's DC that NVIDIA is going to make. So they're doing what many companies do. They start with a component, and now they're moving towards more of a solution, right? So that's kind of what they're doing.
Yeah, that's very cool. No, that's awesome. Let's talk about the NIMBYism a little bit, because one of the sessions, it was Tag Gleason from QTS, Andy Power from Digital Realty was in there, Randy Brockman from Edge Connects was in there, and I can't remember, I think it was Pinnacle Group or somebody else, and then this other guy, but these very large data center owners. And that's what Tag especially said this. He was like, in every community that we are in, we are the best neighbor. Everybody loves us. We come in, we build out the communities. He goes, but then in every community we're trying to go into, we're evil. Like nobody likes us. Nobody wants us there. And they talked specifically about this PR problem that the data center industry is having. And they just see it exacerbating. And I don't think it's because I think we're all doing the right things. The data center industry has been trying to be green for a long time as best as it can, be a good neighbor as best it can. So from the power generation side too, because as we do more on-site power, what does it look like on the power side from noise abatement or just, being a good neighbor? What does that look like? What are the innovations happening there? I'll just throw it out to one of you on that side.
Why would be best for that?
Is my internet okay? Because I think it's not great. I'm definitely getting some buffering, so my apologies on that. Yeah, those are the great questions, Amy. As far as abatement, we've got really let's say 3 major issues that need to be abated and worked on. One is noise, big concern. The biggest is emissions, and then the third is not as major, but it's still water. The data center world has definitely moved away from being large water consumers. They've gotten efficient in a lot of other ways. On the engine side, the generator side, we've gotten to the point where some of our projects, we only use water. We're only consumers of water in the break rooms, the bathroom, and the landscaping, because we're closed loop. But there are other, some of the turbine stuff, we're much larger consumers of water. We've got to be cognizant of that. That doesn't work in all municipalities. That doesn't work in all regions. That's a problem. When we look at the noise, that's interesting, because some of these data centers are going in very rural locations and it's not a big issue. But then we've got some that we're going in very urban, and very, very urban. And our solutions around that are, one, the land is super expensive. It makes, somebody paying $200,000 for corn ground in Indiana look cheap, actually. But so we get very expensive on the land, and then we need to make it look and sound anything but a power plant. So we're doing full enclosures, full buildings. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with JFK in New York, but there's a power plant that sits right in the middle of the clover leaf of traffic in the middle of JFK. You wouldn't know it's there, but it exists there. It's a Constellation plant now today. But there's 2 LM6000s in there that you would not know that was a power plant. That's kind of that type of installation is really becoming much more common globally, not just in the US, to make them look like anything but a power plant, so that you kind of get away from some of that NIMBY action, as you said, Amy, like not in my backyard ever. Nobody wants you. We all envision the coal plant blowing steam and smoke and everything. That's a legacy item. We've got to get mainstream media and social media to kind of transition a look that, just because it looks like a plant, those don't exist anymore. The new ones, they look like anything but a plant. And if it starts to look like a plant, well, I've been told you just make a mural, right? Paint up the side of the building to look like, whatever to fit into the neighborhood. And it's almost a joke, but it's not. It's very serious that
we used to do it too.
Electricity is no longer deemed like a luxury. It is a necessity in today's world. At least in the first world, it is a necessity. But everything from your connectivity to your social medias. Just the Verizon outage that happened a few weeks ago. People lost their minds when their phone didn't work. Then we look at refrigerators, freezers, or what we may get this weekend, like with a very, very cold stint here, where people are going to want to have heat. So energy really matters, but you've still got people, they want the energy at all cost, but then they don't want it in their backyard. And I think the way around that is, we're still going to put it in their backyard. We're going to put it in there in a very quiet and non-threatening way that it looks like anything but. And then the third piece of that, which I actually named number 1, was the emissions. There is a lot of ways to reduce emissions, and we have knocked out all of the low-hanging fruit as far as emissions go. We've got it down to where we're really putting out pretty clean air on the backside of no matter what the technology of the power gen is. And you're getting there through scrubbers, the SCRs. You're getting there through oversized SCRs. You're getting there through custom SCRs. You're getting through there with urea treatments. There's a lot of ways to clean up and abate your emissions, to where if you build this plant in a very suburban setting or a very urban setting, that you get your parts per million down to a level that they're not carcinogenic.
Interesting.
That is the biggest fear when they on TV, when they were interviewing the people that were against the data centers.
Yes.
Even though it was going to bring in a tremendous amount of tax benefit to the town, they're like, well, we don't want to forego tax. We want to forego tax benefit for the health of our children. So I think that's the key on when you said the public relationship focus needs to be, the people need to prove or hear that what you guys are doing is there's emissions, but it's not bad. It's with under, it's not going to harm you. So that's the case that I think they need to make to help. Bring
for sure. All right, let's we're running out of time, so I want to get to this one. Let's talk about supply chain, because it's always been a big issue, and y'all just this is Andy's wheelhouse. We're going to talk about, because I remember back in the day when no one could find a transformer, they were looking for it under rocks. And it was like one of the lead problems, not the turbines, but now the turbines are. But there's always these multiple pieces. So let's talk through supply chain. And Andy, you can go. Where are we kind of sitting at as a whole? And it's thank you for putting a plant in Bastrop, Texas, by the way. It's really helpful.
If we look at so ultra high voltage transformer, utility grade transformers are still out probably 2 to 3 years for most companies, or even depending on their capacity size. I think a lot of people are putting new capacity online. So I think that will improve a lot in the next 12 to 18 months. We'll see it. Hopefully we'll see stuff shipping within 12 months, not 24 months or 36 months or 72 months. Some of the stuff that was out there before, so I think that's going to improve all overall. And then I'm just on the medium voltage side. I don't think that seems to be as a problem. I know that that capacity has been beefed up by us and others over the last couple of years, and that seems to be a lot more readily available, especially cast resin or oil, traditional, oil filled. And then on switchgear, it's interesting. You have a couple of things. If you go to the big manufacturers that Wyatt mentioned, the big four, and then of course, like Mitsubishi and people like us, a lot of that stuff is out. Some of the stuff is out years for some of the people, and other people it's not. So what it really comes down to is how bad does the customer want it, and are they willing to try something new versus a brand that they've used in the past, or so that's one of the issues. But we had a very large project for the gentleman that Elon, and he's building in the Southeast, and we were able to build and ship all that within 12 months and get it online. So that was
awesome.
Pretty, and we're also working on extending that. We also there's some other companies he's owned that we're looking at turning stuff around. And the thing is that the delivery is important, but the second most important thing is quality, and then probably the third thing that is is the cost. But so if you have a competitive cost and you have good quality and you've got a decent delivery, then you have a pretty good chance of winning the day. However, it's also a PR issue. People need to know that who the company is, who's standing behind it, and that sort of thing. So we're fortunate that we've been in business 51 years. So and we have a strong organization globally, and especially in the U.S., it's just getting stronger every day, which is nice. I think the on the component side, the other thing that helps out on some of the projects is the OEMs that build switchgear, because the breakers are more readily available now. Some of the big guys are still having trouble with some of their breakers. We have new digital MCCBs out, and they're like I said, that's what the hyperscalers want to buy, the latest and greatest, because of the communications, some of the better efficiencies, and some of the other features that it offers them. So that capacity gets snapped up pretty quickly. So that is something that's a challenge going forward. But on standard breakers, if somebody has a traditional non-data center and they have a hospital or something like that, most of that stuff is very readily available for most of the companies. In the past, even just getting breakers were an issue. I think that's diminished quite a bit. So you have third parties that build, data. You have there's guys on the West Coast are building. They're buying from ABB or us or somebody else, and they're taking care of switchgear. Some of it's going to data centers, some of it's going to more traditional factories or commercial sites or something like that. So, but what's your biggest heartburn that you're seeing on your products? What's the things that are the longest lead time for you guys? besides turbines? You mentioned that already, right?
Yeah, well, it's everything. Let's just call it the long pole in the tent used to always be like interconnection, and it was never equipment. And I mean, it to an extent, right? Transformers have always been an issue for well over 15 years, but now everyone has just started at the most efficient of the power gen equipment and technologies, and we've just moved up the gen stack, the generation stack, in efficiencies, and now we're putting the least efficient, but we're seeing a lot of that. So that's kind of the heartburn, is this supply chain. And then my question is, if we get our supply chain fully built back up and going and blowing, do we exhaust it, right? Do we finally satiate demand? Does supply finally meet demand? I at the moment, like, we don't see that anywhere, right?
No.
When you're talking the nuke guys, Amy, what was the nuke guys are telling us, like, probably 7 years. You know,
Oh yeah.
the turbine on big turbines, 7 years. Like, 7 years from now, I'm hoping I'm retired in 7 years from now. You know, like
You're
I
never
will be.
gonna retire. You're never gonna retire, Wyatt, ever. You gotta build power plants for the next 50 years. No, I think, what is there, like over 1.2 terawatts of stuff sitting in the interconnection queue? Like, what terawatts nationally?
ERCOT was high.
ERCOT's at like 230 gigawatts. That's just ERCOT alone. That's just Texas. But across the nation, it's like in the terawatt range. It's insane.
And I don't know if my swag is right on this, but my swag is like, on all the projects that we do, if I just use my baseline of things that we start, and then do they meet fruition and go to shovels in the ground, it's like 1 in 10. So let's say let's say there's 200 terawatts. Okay, let's just say if 1 in 10 happens and the other 9 don't happen, that one number is still huge.
It's huge.
It is.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah, it's a massive amount of numbers. Yeah, and that is, there's this, I think it's because, and maybe the same thing happened back in the day when, what was the Industrial Revolution, or like the internet came out, and I don't know, like these major shifts in time that people just could not fathom, that how we would use all of this capacity. But I think we're going to use it all. Like, I think once humans get used to certain things, they just exacerbate, because, and just use more of it. I think there's a reason why people use ChatGPT when they don't have to use ChatGPT, because they're used to using it, right? You necessarily don't need to ask ChatGPT where the closest restaurant is, but people do. They could use a Google search for that, but they don't, right? And so I think it's this will find our way with all this AI workload stuff, but until today, I mean, even at today, enterprises have not deployed AI yet, right? Until the enterprises start doing full AI deployments, and you start seeing, robots everywhere, and robots in manufacturers, and we've got a stewardess that's a robot, and I just flew home, so I'm gonna do that. But until we see those deployments yet, I don't think we even reached like just barely a speck on the. That's just me. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
I just had this conversation yesterday. Sorry, go ahead, Andy. My apologies.
No, I just said you're not crazy, but AI is in its infancy, and it has the ability to help us do more. Okay, so I'm kind of a little bit of a one-man army within LS right now in my current role in marketing, and I'm actually we're working right now figuring out what AI agents to create and deploy that will automate processes. Not so much robots, but there's a lot of low-hanging fruit out there that will be deployed, I believe, in the next 6 months to a year. The issue that we need to grapple with is
is to make sure that we have guardrails on AI, and also we make sure that we're doing things smartly so we can keep up with China, who basically, has the ability just to build whatever they want to. They're over there.
Pretty
And
much.
they're building. Yes, yes. So and they don't care if they build it. They're in heavily areas or not, urban or not, because they just dictate it and do it. So,
Yeah.
as we all know, that's the reason why all the dirty manufacturing went to China, because they were happy to take it, right? And we were more concerned about health, people's health, and things like that. So that has changed somewhat, but I do think robots. I've been around industrial robots for many years, and I can tell you that the people that I know that are in that industry see a very bright future for that industry. Just part of it is we just don't have enough workers that want to work in factories,
I know.
and you have to use automation. And
Yeah.
by the way, all robots don't do all automation. There's other automated things out there that have been around for a long time that work pretty well.
Yeah,
Real
that are
quick-
not even
real quick-
AI. Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick example that I think you guys can relate to. So, do you guys all know what an Eggo waffle is, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, I was in Atlanta at a trade show with our distributor many years ago. I was with a different company. And on the last day, about the last hour of the trade show, the vice president of research and development from Kellogg came into the booth and was talking about an application that he wanted to replace a clutch brake. Amy, a clutch brake is a electromechanical device that's been around almost since the age of time. Okay, it's goes at least to the 1800s, maybe earlier. Okay,
Yeah.
and it basically is just a positioner. It stops, starts, and and anyway, it was used to deliver the batter on the griddle for the Eggo waffles. So we had a electric motor and a controller for the motor, and it's called a servo system, just because a servo is a closed loop system. So we had a single axis controller in the booth, and it was serial number 003. It was a prototype from Japan.
Wow.
And the guy goes, I want that. The distributor looks at me and says, can I let him try that? And I said, I'm supposed to hand carry that back or they're going to shoot me, but yes. So anyway, I went back, took a lot of grief, but shortly when they did the retrofit, they went from being able to, instead of a 6-month payback, they had a 2-month payback, because they were accurately metering the batter. They didn't have to overfill the grid, and they got a tremendous background. And then the biggest kick I got out of it is they actually had a promotion where they had a box that had 4 extra Eggo waffles in it that they were promoting to get more people to buy Eggo waffles. And that design went around the globe for Kellogg. So that's automation.
Cool.
And
That's automation.
and everybody likes to, I always like telling that story because I have a lot of relatives that don't understand what automation is. And as we know, why you have a lot of people don't understand much beyond the electrical switch. It goes on and off. That's all they care about, right? When you try to go beyond that, it's like they glaze over. So you try to keep things simple. But anyway, I think the automation, because of worker shortage and also just efficiencies, we're going to see a lot more of that as we go forward in time. And all that depends on what? Power.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so that's the key. And then a lot of it has to do with water too,
Yep.
because as you mentioned, water cooling system is great. And by the way, I commend you that you have a lot of closed loop systems in place already, Wyatt. That's fantastic, because that's really important. That's the other message that some of these data center folks aren't getting across to these people in the neighborhoods. That, hey, we're not going to use all your water. We have a closed loop system. We developed this. So I don't know what to say. Maybe they need to find a better spokesperson for the industry and get out there and talk about that. That's I don't know what else to say. They need somebody that has a little bit of juice to go out there and convince people that having a data center in your neighborhood's not bad. I can tell you that being in a city that has very high taxes, I'd love to see a couple of data centers to come in to give me some tax abatement. I'm all in. All right.
I hear you. I hear you there. I know it'd be great to be in Loudoun County, wouldn't it? I mean, everybody had like that, all the great parks and the best schools and all this other stuff. I mean, it would be awesome. But Chicago has a ton of data centers. Like, isn't it like number 3 in the US, like for data centers? I don't even know. No idea.
Yeah, you gotta watch out. Our neighbor up north, our Canadian friends, are really getting a lot of data centers right now because
They are.
they have nukes already. They have
Yep.
land, they have water, and they have power. So
And it's cold up there, so they don't have to cool it off so much. Yeah. No, I
yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. I was having that discussion with a couple of my Canadian friends the other day about how they were saying how cold it was, and we were wimps down here in Chicago because it was like 4 degrees, Fahrenheit, not minus 16 centigrades. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm a total wimp. I like my 70 degrees. I don't know what I'm gonna do when it's 29 on Saturday. It's gonna snow. I'm like, no.
Inside.
A couple tips from living in an old building in Chicago. So
Yes.
when the temperature starts to get below freezing, drip your faucets, especially on the outer walls. Okay, and just a slow
Gotcha.
drip. Open the door on the bottom of the kitchen sink so the air can get into that.
There you go.
And hopefully that will keep them warm. If you're really worried about it, try to go out, or get a cheap heater from Amazon and plug it in, as long as you have power, and blow some hot air towards it. But
There you
you
go.
really don't want to have your pipes freeze up. That's really a royal pain. Okay.
Yes, it is.
You guys are at high risk for that because the stuff that's built down south usually never had to worry about that in the past. You know what I'm saying?
No,
So
I know.
that's something
We usually have
that's
to
my
go
tip.
cover. That's our tip. That's awesome. See, PSA, drip your pipes, especially this weekend in Texas. Well, actually, isn't it like most of the United States? Isn't it going to be cold in most of the United States? Okay. So it'll be a power tsunami. We'll see what happens, whose grids go down. We'll have a grid watch, like a grid watch
Yes.
to see whose power's
Yeah.
going.
And I hope if you guys have fireplaces, they're working fireplaces that you can use also. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I hear you. We're gonna have to break out. Like, I've got a back porch. I've got some firewood.
Amy,
I'll
thank you
put
for
a fire
having
outside.
having us on.
Yeah, it's been fun. See, our hour is up. Look how fast he got. Like, I see, Andy he did great. Andy, it was you're a rookie. It's your first show. And you made it all the way through. See, this is how we roll. All right. So if somebody would like to get a hold of you gentlemen, how could they do so? Wyatt, go first. How could someone get a hold of you? They want to build a power plant next to their backyard.
And we're vetting every day. Reach out to my representative on that. She hosts this show. Her name's Amy Polvato. LinkedIn or if you know Amy, shoot me a message on LinkedIn. My name's there, and I'll get back with you. And we'll get one of our team members on that. We've got a handful of folks that are working every day, vetting sites for projects and vetting projects, and deciding what we want to focus time on or what we focus time on, and try to move the ball forward. Got a bunch of moving forward, but anyway, I do want to say one thing right as we go around efficiency. It used to be 1 megawatt would run 1,000 homes for an hour, and in Texas that number is now like 650 homes for an hour. So we are using more power, like radically using more power over the last few years. So as we go forward in time, is that number going to be more like 200 homes for a megawatt because we've got all the industrials and data centers? I don't know, but it's just, the things are rattling around in my head as we're talking about efficiencies.
Yep.
We are at a paradigm shift, and what a fun time to be here.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. All right, Andy, parting thoughts, and how can someone get a hold of you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn under Andy Erda would probably come up. Andrew Erda, both will work. And then if you go to our website, lselectricamerica.com, we have a contact us page. And what's nice about that is you click on a couple boxes and you could fill in exactly what you're looking for. And that will make sure that goes to the right person that can respond quickly with what you need. Instead of going through the Andy filter. But either way you want to go. All right.
Exactly. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been this week. Next week, we will be talking all sorts of fun things. And yeah, and we all survived. All my other friends who survived PTC should hopefully be on the show next week. All right. Have a
get
good
some
one.
rest and stay warm, you guys. All right.
Yes. Thank you.
Hey, you too, Andy. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, wife. Thank you. Bye.